I wanted to be at Texas State. I chose to be at Texas State. I'm from Texas. That was important to me. I always knew if the right guy got this job, you better watch out.
You better watch out. This is Win Now or Get Bent, episode 223. If you don't already know, I'm Keff Ciardello, coming to you on Friday, February 13th, and we've got a schedule for the Bobcats. The Pac-12, keeping with the After Dark theme, released its schedule somewhat late on Wednesday night, 8:30 p.m. our time here in Texas, and we now know when and where the Bobcats will be playing their new Pac-12 brethren. At least 11 out of 12. There's one flex game at the end, which we will talk about. 7 home games for Texas State coming up. Some awesome destinations that they get to go to this season. An exciting time for the Bobcats. 8 games in Texas, as we've already talked about, with 4 Texas games in the non-conference slate. What a time. Can't wait to talk about this schedule and what it means for Texas State going forward. Also have a little basketball update for you. We learned about the Pac-12 schedule at the basketball game on Wednesday. The Bobcats upset the top-seeded Troy, formerly top-seeded Troy. They have been surpassed since losing to Texas State. Now they're number 2, but at the time they were the top seed, and the Bobcats are on a 5-game win streak, 4 games left before the tournament. Sitting right there in the 5 spot. I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to talk some basketball. We're going to talk baseball season starting. We're going to talk about softball season starting. What a time for sports. We are all over the map here at Win Now or Get Bent. But before we get there, this episode is brought to you by TGC LLC, the GalindoCollective.com. That's Galindo, Galindo Collective.com, a team of professional consultants dedicated to helping others realize their business potential through people, planning, and practice. Their services cover a wide range of areas such as business strategy, marketing, human resources, and financial planning. If you own property or a business and want to maximize its profitability, contact TGC at thegalindocollective.com and follow their social media platforms on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at TGC_LLC, and on Instagram and Facebook at the Galindo Collective. Shout out to my guy, Rick Galindo, a true Texas State sicko, a Texas State grad himself. Past 3 seasons, he has been partnered with Win Now or Get Bent, going into the Pac-12 with us as well in 2026. Cannot thank Rick Galindo enough. I know he's excited about one specific road game on this schedule. Can't wait to see him when they do that one. But until then, check out thegalindocollective.com. That's Galindo, thegalindocollective.com. All right, let's get to these Bobcats, specifically this schedule. Like I was saying, that schedule was dropped on Wednesday night, and it is Friday. This pod is late. That's honestly where we should start. I owe all of you an apology. My neighbor got a jump start on spring cleaning, and has just been running the chainsaw since yesterday afternoon. Finally finished up this morning, Friday morning. So here we are. We're getting a pod in finally. You know, it's probably on me. I gotta get used to the After Dark theme with the Pac-12 with these releases. I should have just been ready and done one late night on Wednesday night. I figured I'd have ample time on Thursday, but you know, you got to take into account chainsaws. People do yard work during the days. May need to adapt the pod and get a little late start. I guess before the schedule, I'll do a quick mailbag cleanup from the last mailbag episode. Shout out to everybody who participated. Hashtag WNOGB. Send in those questions on Twitter. Lots of great questions. Not my best mailbag performance. We have some cleanup. I had some mess ups in that mailbag episode. Right off the bat, Colorado State is in Fort Collins, not in Colorado Springs. I don't know why I was mixing that up. Maybe it's because the Mountain West Conference recently moved their headquarters from the Colorado Springs, and I was just reading about them. Maybe I was getting those wires crossed. But Fort Collins, Colorado. Shout out to Fort Collins, Colorado. Appreciate someone who pointed out that I got that one wrong. Bowie knife, James Bowie. Okay, I knew when I said Davy Crockett, I knew James Bowie had something to do with the Alamo. So there you go. Can't believe I didn't know that. I was sufficiently scolded by my father for not knowing my Texas history on that one. So James Bowie, my bad. It'd make for a good trophy for the UTSA matchup. And I mentioned my Desert Island album would be Cake. And then a few days later, their founding guitarist, one of their great songwriters as well, Greg Brown, died in Cake. So there you go. I even said I might be dating myself saying this band, and then their guitarist passed away. So rest in peace to Greg Brown. I was pretty disappointed to see that. What a terrible jinx for the pod. But there you go. Still love Cake. Made me want to turn them on even more after that. But let's get to this schedule. That was some mailbag cleanup. There was also some comments on the 3.5 mil as far as that figure that I was throwing around for the media package for the Pac-12. And that's, like I said in that episode, that was speculation. So I'm just preparing everybody when you hear things from the Utah State AD saying it looks lean, and you look at a comparative conference like the Mountain West. But then there's even some comments about the Mountain West. That 3.5 figure might only be designated for some of their higher end programs that have been there for a while, not some of the new programs. So there you go. Lots up in the air, waiting for that litigation, that lawsuit, to be somewhat settled in April. It seems like it should be when April comes, but we will know more there on that front. But let's get to the schedule. I am excited about this schedule. I am fired up. We were talking about the schedule in the mailbag, and I had my ideal destinations for the Bobcats on the road. I had a feeling that they'd have 7 home games, with the way the schedule is shaken out and how much the Bobcats have to travel. I had a feeling that the conference would throw them a bit of a bone with some of the scheduling, but I had some of their away destinations. I wanted Boise State, San Diego State, Colorado State, and Utah State, and I went 3 for 4. They have Boise State, San Diego State, Colorado State, maybe on the Colorado State. We'll see. That's kind of a debatable one. But the Utah State, instead of Utah State, they're going to Oregon State. But let's do it. Let's go through this schedule. I even made if you're watching our YouTube channel, youtube.com/winnnoworgetbent, check us out. Like, subscribe, comment, all the good stuff. We have the nice thumbnail that the wizard, Zachary Webb, really, really dug deep into his bag when he pulled out this thumbnail with the entire schedule on it. I really appreciated that from Zachary Webb. Shout out to the wizard. I saw there was a comment asking for an update on the wizard outfit. We know I'm all for it. Executive order, I'm calling for it. So we'll see if he puts one on. I have my doubts. I don't know if Zach's going to be willing to put on the wizard suit, but we will try. But he killed it with this thumbnail. We have the schedule. If you're watching our YouTube, I'm going to pull it up right now, youtube.com/winnnoworgetbent. Bang, there you go. You got the entire schedule right there, so you can take a look at it while we go through it. The 2026 Texas State schedule. Right off the bat, the Pac-12 era starts with a banger at Texas, September 5th. The Texas, the Longhorns, Arch Manning, everything that the Longhorns bring. The Bobcats are going to be staring at Bevo on the sideline there at Darrell K. Royal. That's going to be, and it feels it just feels perfect that this is going to be the first game for the Bobcats in the Pac-12 Conference with this team that is just right up the road, 20, 30 minutes up 35, and Texas State has lived in the shadow of the Longhorns for the entirety of the university, pretty much, at least the entirety of athletics. I know there was even times when Texas State was known as Southwest Texas State, and there were attempts in the late 90s to change the name to Texas State, and the one university that stepped in and stopped Texas State from doing it, saying it infringed on their brand, was the University of Texas. So Texas State got creative and circumvented that. Took a few years, but they were able to create the Texas State University system, which has Sam Houston, Sewell Ross, schools like this. And that is how Texas State was able to say this is actually our brand, because of the university system. Other schools could have adopted the name, but obviously none of them wanted to. Sam Houston's never going to be known as Texas State Huntsville. But that was a way that Texas State was able to find a loophole, go around the big dog and turn its name into Texas State. Otherwise, if UT had its way, it would still be Southwest Texas State. But I digress. I feel that the very first game of the Pac-12 era at Texas is very fitting. It feels perfect to me. I know a lot of people are nervous. We heard G.J. Kinney. He seemed a little nervous about playing Texas. Didn't seem like something he's too thrilled about. But, hey, what's the big deal? Anybody can throw out an upset. Texas State, nobody thought Texas State would beat Baylor a couple of years ago. Give G.J. Kinney some time to game plan. Give him a summer. Give him some time. Who knows? Arch Manning, though, that's going to be a tough one. The next week, Bobcats are home. Three-game homestand following that first game against Texas. They'll be at home against UTSA on September 12th. Bobcats 2 wins in a row over the Birds. Feels great. Let's see if they can continue that. We know this series is going to continue for a while between UTSA and it's 2-5. UTSA still has 5 wins on the Bobcats, so there's a bit of a gap there still that the Bobcats need to overcome. The following week is UNT, a nice little rematch of the First Responders Bowl from 2024. Guessed in 2025, January 2025, following the 2024 season. Texas State won the game just barely. Drew Messmaker's first collegiate start, but you're looking at it now, and Drew Messmaker's not coming through that tunnel. Eric Morris isn't there anymore. I'm ready. Come on, let's hand it to the other Birds, the Mean Green Birds. Gosh, Texas State's 2 biggest Texas enemies are Birds. I say that, but, Sam Houston, what am I talking about? That's the other one besides UTSA. We can put UNT. They're almost up there. There's definitely no love lost, at least on Twitter, when UNT comes to town. Incarnate Word the following week, September 26th. Another rematch, but one that Texas State lost, 2021. Anybody remember that? That was probably the lowest point, I'd say, in that 8-year stretch of the Bobcats losing. I would say that Incarnate Word loss was pretty up there. But, when you look at it, Cam Ward was there. Eric Morris again. That's Incarnate Word, though. Eric Morris isn't coming through that tunnel. Cam Ward's not coming through that tunnel, so they better watch out. I know that's going to be really cool for G.J. Kinney as well, coming over from Incarnate Word. There's a lot of former players that transferred from Incarnate Word, even coaches as well that came over. So that's going to be a pretty cool matchup. I feel like that is as cool of a non-conference slate as it gets. It's one that I've been looking at since about 2023 and just licking my chops going like, wow, just look at that. If that stays true, because you never know. Sometimes these games change over the years, but this one stayed true for a while. And that is a lot of fun. A Texas quartet to start the season for the Bobcats. But then they go far away. They go real far away to start the Pac-12. The first official Pac-12 conference game for Texas State at San Diego State on October 3rd. Shout out to my guy, Rick Galindo, the Galindo Collective. He's out there. His work has him stationed out there right now, so I'm definitely going to see him when that matchup comes, because that's what I'm going to try to do. Last season, I was able to make it to 8 games. I want to make it to 10 this year. I'd love to go to all 12, but I want to go to 10 this year, and I already have San Diego circled on my schedule thinking about it. I mean, obviously San Diego is a great place, but this is the first Pac-12 conference game for Texas State as well. I feel like that is a monumental moment that I want to be there for. I want to see it. I know that the Aztecs have it going on. I hear it's a nice place, a really cool stadium. Definitely want to get to know the Pac-12 teams. And this is the fun part. I mean, because you're looking at it right now if you're watching on the YouTube channel. You look at that Pac-12 slate, and you see these teams coming up, and there's just so much more excitement than some of these other Sun Belt teams. And it's no offense to the Sun Belt, but you look at this schedule, and it really just feels like an FBS schedule with recognizable logos and destinations that people are going to want to travel to. This is a beautiful schedule. I love it so very much. That's why I still have it up on the YouTube channel. But Bobcats, they have a bye week after San Diego, bye week after the first 5 games. It's about where you want one, midpoint of the season. This is a little bit before the midpoint of the season, but that's not a bad spot for a bye week. But October 10th, that weekend, will be a bye for the Bobcats. And then they are back home. First Pac-12 home game, Colorado State. Now this one, it could be on Thursday, October 15th, or it'll be on Saturday, October 17th. I think that's really cool that Texas State made it a point to keep the sanctity of Friday. Fridays in the state of Texas specifically are designated for high school football. I know that is something that I've heard Dr. Kelly Dampus, school president here at Texas State, talk about himself. And so that was something that they had in mind because they were looking at scheduling a Friday game. Texas State said, if we do that, we're going to do it on Thursday. So that date could change. It'll either be Thursday, October 15th, or Saturday, October 17th. But it will be a home game against Colorado State. Hang on to Colorado State. They might be coming back in this discussion here. Bobcats are back at home the following weekend as well, October 24th versus Utah State. Utah State coming to San Marcos. I know there was a game against Utah State. I wish I'd made a note right here. It was maybe the WAC season, I want to say, where Utah State handed Texas State their behind pretty good. So that'll be nice to get a rematch. That's over a decade old. I'll have to go back and look at that one. I know there was a time where they played Boise State, and Boise State gave it to them pretty good. Bobcats back on the road for a Halloween matchup, a blue field Halloween matchup against Boise State. That's a fun one. The blue field on Halloween, that's going to be a fun one. I talk about going to some road games. That might have to be one I circle. I will say I have a 3-year-old daughter who absolutely loves Halloween, so that one might take some discussions. We will see that. That's TBD right there. But how could you not want to go see that blue field in Boise? I know they've talked a lot about their river and how they believe their river is better than Texas State's river. They're like, we have one that goes through campus as well. The argument back towards those folks in Idaho is, yeah, it's really cold up there, though, so you don't get to swim in yours as much as Texas State does. So I definitely want to see Boise, Idaho. It's a state I haven't been to, Idaho. Following weekend, they are at Oregon State, November 7th. Oregon State, one of the flagship programs of the Pac-12, one of the two that held on. They're able to make this whole thing possible. It seemed like this conference was going to explode, but Oregon State, Washington State, the Pac-12 commissioner, everybody held strong. And now we're getting the Pac-12 revival back in 2026. Then Fresno back in San Marcos on November 14th, Fresno State. Back-to-back home games, and then Washington State with the other flagship in San Marcos, November 21st for Washington State. I'm excited about that one. My dad, he was in the Navy, so we moved around a whole lot. I spent some time in my life in the state of Washington. So I think that's fitting. The final home game is against Washington State. Shout out to Dave Buckholtz, family friend that we have, Washington State grad. I may have to see if he'll come to San Marcos on that one. I know he's tuned into the pod. Who knows? Maybe he tunes in this one, Pac-12 conversation, so it involves his team. And then the final week, we have a flex on November 28th. That's going to be a road game for Texas State because we've already mentioned 7 home games for the Bobcats. And this 5th game, this last one is a flex. Really why they have that flex, we all know that there's not enough teams for a complete schedule for in conference. Everybody has one open game, so there's going to be a home and home. Everybody's going to do a home and home with teams in the pack. But why it has that flex is you never know. Some team might have a better chance at slingshotting their way into the college football playoff. Maybe they get a more favorable matchup if that's the case. This gives a lot of leeway for the conference to do something to put the trajectory of the conference into the college football playoff, make that trajectory a little better, a little easier, maybe something they can control a little more. So I find that very interesting. It's a different dynamic that other conferences don't have, especially these ones that have too many teams in their conference. This is something where the Pac-12 has this flex that I appreciate. But that being said, even though it's flex, it's likely to be Colorado State again. At Colorado State, I mentioned this earlier on episode 222, the Mailbag episode, that I could see the Pac-12 doing that to make travel a little easier for these home and home games, give each opponent their give each program their closest opponent as their home and home to make that 12th game a little easier to travel. But that one is open, likely to be Colorado State, but it is TBD for now. So there you go. Texas State schedule 2026. The Pac-12. Like I was saying, you look at that schedule, you hear those destinations, and you can't help just get more excited. Even if these figures with the media deal with the Pac-12, I know a lot has been made about that. Even if it doesn't line up and it's not as high as some people want it to be around Texas State, when you look at these opponents, when you look at these markets that Texas State is getting into, they're expanding their brand to a whole different area of the United States that they haven't before. You understand that marketing and that brand exposure, that being on linear TV as well, not having to sign up for an ESPN Plus app just to watch some football games or even basketball coming up for when they're in the Pac-12. It's going to be on linear TV. That in itself is an investment. While it's not, like fungible cash, that you can actually spend and everything, it is something that will turn into that later down the road. The more eyes that you have on Texas State and this program in the Pac-12. So I know it's very few. I feel like it's like 95% of Texas State fans are really, really excited about this. There's a few people, they're not as vocal, but they're not as excited about it. And I don't understand it. I look at this and I'm so excited. I can't believe this is where Texas State is in 2026. I know it's this weird zombie Pac-12 conference, but this is still exciting. This is a landscape that this place has not traversed before, and this is where we're getting to expand Texas State. And I'm excited about that for sure. I'm excited about the Pac-12. I know a lot of you commented talking about, I saw the question in the mailbag about Pac-12 101. Seemed like a lot of people were excited about that based on the YouTube comments. Pac-12 101 is definitely coming up. I think we got to start with Colorado State. It seems like it might be like a friendly rivalry, but if this is going to be the most common opponent for Texas State, we got to get to know those guys. I know Mike Rowe up there goes by Chorizo sometimes. I've hopped on his pod before. Maybe we'll talk to our guy up there and figure out what we can about the Rams. I know he's planning on coming down this way twice, he was telling me, because they have UTSA on their schedule as well early in August. I think it's towards the end of August. So he might do a Texas double dip up there. But excited about that, excited for the Pac-12. We're going to talk a lot about this schedule all this offseason, and we'll dive into these opponents. I thought about doing that now and talking about what the Bobcats what the Bobcats are going to be facing with this schedule, how well these opponents did last year, things like that. But we'll save that for some Pac 101 coming this offseason. Good offseason content that'll keep us going all through the summer. So be on the lookout for that. I mentioned it earlier, basketball. 5-game winning streak for Texas State men's basketball. A great win for them on Wednesday, a double-digit win over a Troy team that was sitting on top of the Sun Belt standings before that game. This is the same Troy team that I can remember back, I think it was in December. I was watching this game, ESPN Plus, and the Bobcats were just absolutely outclassed. And in my head, I'm like, how is this team going to be ready for the Pac-12? How is this going to look in 2026 when they're facing the Gonzagas and all these other teams in the Pac? And something happened over the last couple weeks when I was driving up to the game the other day, which game was it? It was a couple weeks ago, and I heard on the radio, shout out to Bill Schoening coming up here and doing some 89.9 radio. He used to be the Spurs play-by-play guy, and he retired. Now he's filling in for some radio. So I was driving in listening to 89.9, and he was talking to Benny Seltzer, the assistant coach. And Benny Seltzer was talking about that Marshall game where the Bobcats got beat really bad, and they were snowed in because of all those winter storms, and they were able to really lock in with these guys and tell them and correct a lot of things and sit them down and be like, we gotta get things fixed, we gotta get things right. And it feels like ever since that moment, whatever happened during that winter storm where they all got locked in their hotel, something clicked, and they're on a 5-game winning streak, and they're not just winning, they're looking fantastic. And I mean, whether it's in the paint with DJ Hall, Tay Knox, they have so much size in the paint, but then they have strong guard play with Mark Drone, Caden Gums. They are as fully formed as I've seen them possibly in the Terrence Johnson era. It's hard to say that because his first 2 years with those regular season conference championships, those are some really good teams with Mason Harrell, Caleb Asbury, some names like that. Even thinking like Nate Martin a few years back before he transferred out. This is such a fully formed team. Or even when I was talking to Terrence Johnson after that game on Wednesday, it's like, where's the weak spot? Where's the area that you guys are suffering right now? And if I were to critique, maybe it would be threes. If they would have held on to Colton Benson, who left last year, that would have helped a lot there. But even then, you see DJ Hall knocking down some threes, the big true freshman getting outside on the perimeter and hitting those big shots. They are a very complete team. They're a new team. A lot of these guys transferred in. There's only a handful of them that played on the team last year. And that's been the interesting thing as well, too, because I can remember last season when things weren't going so well and you'd hear Terrence Johnson in these press conferences, and he was very candid about some of these guys, they're not playing hard. They don't feel like they want to be here. There's not a lot of pride. And, at times when a team is losing, sometimes that can feel like they're throwing players under the bus. But then you look at the standard and what they're doing this year, and you hear how he talks after a press conference, you just see that's where his standards were. The accountability was there, and it wasn't as high as it should have been last year. They locked in. They're able to get them rolling. I know it's a 5-game win streak, and to be honest, they're not doing very well on the road. Great at home, 14-1 at home. I think they're 2-10 on the road, 2-12 if you include the neutral games. So not very good on the road, and obviously the entire Sun Belt Conference is on the road in Pensacola or a neutral site where they're 0-2. So they're going to have to figure that one out. There are 2 more road games left to finish out the season. I think we need to see some strong play there to have some more confidence going into the Sun Belt tournament. That road play is an issue, but besides that, I mean, this is a complete team. I feel like it's a team that is very ready to do some damage in the tournament. And I feel like Terrence Johnson is we mentioned it a little bit. Those are some of the questions. Does men basketball need to make a move? And it's not done yet this season. There's still 4 games left. There's 16-11 right now. I believe I was saying that the barometer for myself is around 20 wins is what I think of for a successful season for at Texas State for basketball. And I think there's still some time left, but what I've seen in this 5-game winning streak and what I anticipate them doing to end the season over the next 2 weeks, I feel like he's really coaching his way into the Pac-12, into returning and growing with this program with Texas State. Because it was bumpy the last 3 years. Those first 2 years, back-to-back regular season conference championships, a bit of a letdown once they got to the tournament. But then the last 3 years, it was bumpy. They had some wins in the tournament, more wins than they had when they won the regular season championship. So this needs to be a year where it's not just this strong finish, but once they get into the tournament, we actually see some wins. But I'll say this right now, they've moved all the way up to the 5th seed of the conference standings. Let me double check that. I'm pretty certain they're in the 5th spot. Yeah, right there, 5th spot. Let's refresh it. Make sure nobody surpassed them. Yeah, look, I'm glad Coastal Carolina passed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Texas State is 6th right now. That's why you double check your work right there. But Coastal Carolina passed them. They must have got a win last night. Similar records. Both are 16-11. Both are 8-6 in conference. But I'm remembering Coastal getting a win over Texas State. Sorry to almost do my prep research on the go. It's usually stuff I do before. But I know they played Coastal and they lost 72-70. It was the second to right after that game, they rattled off a bunch of wins. James Madison as well. And it was that Marshall game. Maybe it was James Madison that I was thinking about, that they were locked in the airport now that I'm looking at the schedule, or locked in their hotel. And they really came together when I was talking about Benny Seltzer with that, telling that story. But right now the Bobcats are 6th, and that actually matters, that 6th spot. They're on the cusp of it now, of getting a bye all the way until the weekend. I know the Sun Belt men's basketball tournament, both of them, men's and women's tournaments, they're always real funky. All 14 teams get in. The higher up you get, the more buys you get. The best is obviously being 1 and 2. You get a buy all the way up until like Saturday, the semifinals. It's pretty crazy. But right now, if the Texas State stays at 6th or 5th, they'll have a bye all the way until Friday, March 6th. And that'll put them through two or three rounds into the tournament because it starts on Tuesday in Pensacola, Florida. So that would be pretty important. It's a few games off. And, you can argue rest versus rust, which is more important. Would you rather you guys get rest, or do you think they'll get rusty by sitting so long? So there is an argument to be had there. And I don't know, that was something that was talked about when the Bobcats won regular season championships in 2020 and then in 2021 when they won those two, and then immediately first-round loss once they got to the tournament. There was a lot of discussion of rest versus rust in that situation. But I still feel like getting a bye, getting to rest a little bit, especially because that has been an issue, not this season, but in the past few years with this basketball team. This basketball team has been injuries that they have somewhat qualmed this season, which has been nice to see. When they have a full roster, you see what they're doing, what they're able to work with. And even though it's a lot of guys who have transferred in and everything, they're starting to become a more cohesive unit because they've played the whole season together. That's even without the Purnell twins. Those are two players that they were really excited about that haven't been getting out there. But basketball, let's see what they have left. 4 games. ULM at home on Saturday. That should be a win. ULM is currently 14th in the Sun Belt. It's at the very bottom. Then they go on the road, 2 straight games. First one, South Alabama. South Alabama's 4th in the conference right now, so that'll be a tough opponent. And then Louisiana, the Ragin' Cajuns, who are currently 9th. 2 road games there. You'd like to, obviously, you want Texas State to win both of them. I feel like I was about to say, it'd be nice if they could split that, but honestly, at this point, with how they've done on the road, you need them to win both of those. I feel like even just to get that confidence of, we can do this, we can win on the road, we can actually get a road game win. And then they finished the season App State at home, who they surpassed. Last I checked, they were top in the Sun Belt. They still are. That's who passed up Troy after Texas State beat them. 18-9, 10-4. And what's pretty crazy about this is you look at Texas State, they're 6th. The teams 6 through 3 have 8 wins in conference. App State has 10. Troy has 9. The Bobcats can get this, if they can finish strong and turn this 5-game win streak into a 9-game win streak, they'll finish the regular season with 20 wins, which will be remarkable. And there's a good chance that they'll be the top seed in the Sun Belt. They could still obtain that with 4 games left. It's a tall order. But it was a tall order for them to get, I guess they're 6th now, but to get close to the top 5 a couple weeks ago, that was, they were hanging around 10th, 11th in the Sun Belt standings. So how far they've come has been pretty great to see. Need to finish strong, strong finish, and then a nice showing in the Sun Belt, preferably a Sun Belt championship. Talk about how great that would be. A Sun Belt championship, you get a berth into the NCAA tournament. You can quiet some of these Pac-12 people out there that are like, why are we bringing Texas State into this conference? Look at their basketball team. I hate that. It makes me so mad because they turned this program around in the 20-teens, and things were rocking here. Fans were showing up. The pandemic hit. Turmoil hit with the whole Danny Casper situation, and it's just been a slow, steady decline for basketball. So it was nice to see on Wednesday. It was 2,740 fans, somewhere around there, and that may not seem like a lot to people, but it's the most I've seen in a couple years out there. And I've seen it more. I've seen it get to 6,000 there, where that place is dang near full. But this program, there was hype around it at some point. I know it could be around it going into the Pac-12, and nothing would bring nothing would bring more momentum than winning the conference championship, going to the NCAA tournament since the first time since 1997. I believe that is a long, long time. We're talking almost 30 years. We're talking since Texas State has been in the NCAA tournament and been on that March Madness bracket. That would be fantastic for Texas State. Look at that. I'm over a half hour. Dang it. I keep telling myself I'm going to keep these under a half hour. One of these days, I'm going to do it. But let's go real quickly to baseball, softball. Softball, an awesome win on Thursday night over number 18 Clemson. They started their season last weekend. They went 3-2 last weekend. Thursday night, they get a nice win over Clemson. And then baseball has Niagara to start their season, a 3-game series hosting Niagara this weekend. I know the Wizard's going to be out there, at least on Friday. He's excited, talking about a true freshman that's going to be on the bump for the Bobcats. He's pretty fired up to see. I know a lot of people are. I was mentioning that a little bit on the Mailbag episode, that there's a lot of recruits that are coming and a lot of guys that are back that has Texas State fans real excited about baseball this season. So that is coming up this weekend. So we're going to have lots to talk about. We got to increase the Win Now or Get Bent output, huh? We'll talk about all these sports coming up, especially from the Wizard getting out there at baseball. He's a big seam head, you know. He loves baseball. We got to get him talking some baseball. I know he's got some good football stuff in the pipeline for you coming up on his next Wizard Wednesday. That day might change Wednesday. We'll see, because it kind of pigeonholes him, you know. Like a schedule release is coming out on Wednesday, he can't put out the episode, so we may need to let our guy migrate his days a little bit more. But he's got some great stuff coming up about Texas State's defense and Will Wyndham and all that. So look out for that. He'll be doing that real soon. But all right, check out our Patreon page if you haven't already, patreon.com/WinNowOrGetBent. Our merch site is under construction. I've got my Take Back Texas hat. Felt I had to wear this one with the Bobcats going to the Pac-12. Got to let them know a Texas team is in the West Coast. Needed that Take Back Texas. I had to get the Texas State basketball jacket, too, after that win on Wednesday over Troy. That was good stuff. But go check out our YouTube channel as well, Win Now or Get Bent on YouTube. youtube.com/WinNowOrGetBent. There it is. That's the link. Our Twitter page @WinNowOrGetBent. Find us on Instagram or TikTok @WNOGB. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment on all our platforms if you can. Help us grow. If you're an audio head like me and you're listening on Apple and Spotify, thank you very much. Make sure you're subscribed. Leave a comment, rating, whatever. However you can help us. It is greatly appreciated. A big thank you to TGC LLC. Know he's excited about San Diego. Shout out to my guy Rick Galindo. For 3 seasons, they've been partnered with us. Big shout out to the Galindo Collective. Shout out to my guy, the Wizard, Zachary Webb, making an awesome thumbnail. Let's take another look at it before we go, huh? Where is it? Bang. Oh, yeah. That's great stuff. He did it so fast, too. You know, I didn't even have to be like, hey, you know, maybe let's have the schedule. And he's just got it. You know, it's people like Zach that give me hope that AI won't replace all of us, you know. He's too sharp. He's going to beat the machines. You're our great hope. You're our John Connor, like in Terminator. I hope you get that reference. And, of course, thank you to all you sickos for tuning in. If it wasn't for you, I'd be shouting into the void. But because you're always tuning in, we're able to continue this. We're able to keep living our passion, talking about these Bobcats, and being surrounded in this San Marcos sicko community. So thank you all so much for always tuning in. We appreciate it. And until next time, win now or get bent.